Good, how are you?
Well, I want to give you a paper copy.
Okay.
I'll email it to you.
Good.
On the beginnings.
I meant to ask you the other day, so it's still for me to come?
Yes.
Good.
If I need to, formally submit a email to you or that
No,
sort of
I
thing.
just said, I need to make sure I get leave of absence from court that day. So I just was going to go ahead and file that this month. I didn't want to do it if it's good.
Yes. I'll shoot you an email in the morning,
Okay.
confirm the date and that sort of thing. But like I said, that's just the beginnings
Right.
of PowerPoint. I will email it to you, and after the holidays, we'll get together and kind of try to finalize who's going to do what and say what and that sort of thing.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Did I give you a copy of all those handouts?
I think so.
I had like 7 or 8 handouts.
No, you showed them to me, but I didn't get them from you yet. You showed them to me, but I don't
Okay,
have them. Stuff that you had found already.
I'll try to drop a copy of those by your office tomorrow.
Okay. Good. Depending on how Judge Harris rules next week on my case against the county, I may be in the middle of a Fair Housing Act case in February.
Like I said, with you having that going on and everything else, I think it's a very interesting topic. Norman and I.
It's one of those topics that people don't realize they have an issue
And it's one
until
of those,
somebody shows up.
And Norman and I think that it's going to be more question and answer discussion than formal
Kind of like that
presentation.
thing I did last time, special events. Everybody has an issue.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's right.
But anyway, like I said, I'll email that and I'll drop copies of all that other stuff to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Slap me out of the way.
People are working here.
All right. Good.
That should make it to North County be about 40.
speaking in minutes. So we already have a rule about everything. Of course, what is the Historic Downtown Canton Association?
We don't know.
Or other association organized, so that'd be the DDA perhaps.
Thank you for bringing my books up.
You're welcome.
I thought it was okay. Takes the
Texted Ellen, I said, it's a very short agenda. So there's at least some possibility that it'll be a short meeting. None of that really affects the agenda.
Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order, if you would, please. This is our regular council meeting, December the 3rd, 2015. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
Dear Lord, during this time of Thanksgiving and holiday celebration with friends and family, may we always be reminded of the true reason for this season. May you all take the time to give and receive all the joy and happiness of this season. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Certainly like to welcome all of our guests and visitors tonight. I would like to mention one thing for the council members here. If you would, please, you need to speak clearly into the microphone. We're having a little bit of problem. The air conditioning unit is running, and the heat, I guess it is, hopefully, tonight anyway. And we need to make sure that everyone can hear you clearly. Under item A, Rivers Alive Canton Creek Monitoring Group proclamation, they have requested that be postponed until the January meeting, so that will not be presented tonight. Item B, introduction of new police department officers. Chief Mitchell.
Mayor and Council, thank you. If I can have Ms. Tiffany Smithwick step forward, please. Officer Summer Corinne. Mr. Hunter Course. If you can step forward. These are new employees of the police department. And we have really been making a striving to hire employees, officers, that have a mindset of community and an attitude of service. And these individuals here fit that mold. They went through extensive background, and we want our community, council, mayor, and those in attendance here to see their face, because we want our officers to be seen, as we call it, humanizing the badge. And in saying that, Mr. Hunter Course comes to us, 5 years experience in the United States Army. Ms. Corinne comes to us, Officer Summer Corinne comes to us with 6 years previous experience with the Glenn County Police Department. And Officer Tiffany Smithwick here comes to us with 5 years total experience between the Columbia County Sheriff's Office and the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office. So we welcome you here to the agency, and thank you.
Welcome. All right, moving along, consideration to approve the agenda. First of all, we need to remove item 10F regarding the revolving loan fund. That will come on at a later meeting. Are there any other changes that need to be made or additions? We have the motion to approve with the change and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. You also have in your agenda package tonight the minutes from the November the 19th council meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to be made to those? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. In your agenda package are the financial statements for October 2015. These are for informational purposes only. And if you have any questions or comments regarding those, we have our CFO and our city manager here to answer those. Anyone? Okay. Under our community service announcements, Ms. McGrew, do you have some items?
The only thing I have, and if anybody has something else, let me know. The Main Street event, Art and Wine Walk, is December 11 and 12. On Friday, it's 4 to 6. On Saturday, it's 2 to 6.
2 to 6.
Tickets can be obtained online and also at most any merchant downtown.
Okay. And those are 25?
They are indeed $25.
$25.
And you receive 20 tasting tickets, and they can be used over Friday and Saturday.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Under our 10-minute public input, we did not have anyone actually sign up for that. So we'll move on to our new business. We have item A, Canton VFW Post 5262 and the American Legion Post 45, Resources for Veterans. Mr. Wright, would you like to introduce this?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I want to thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time this evening. Our purpose, and I'm joined by a couple other of my fellow veterans this evening, and it was kind of good to see that in the group of officers that were invited, you had somebody that's former military there as well. I think everybody here is very well aware that former military and military retirees and veterans is a pretty robust community, part of our community here in Canton, Cherokee County too. But I thank you for that. And what we'll talk about, and I'll talk very briefly in a broad sense, is that we want to talk about the kinds of things that the Veteran Services organizations and that veterans and former military can provide to the community. Much less so to talk about what we want the community to do for us. We continue in service. We are not done with our service. I'll be followed by Jim Lindenmeyer, who's a fellow member of mine of American Legion Post 45, and he will also talk about the organization for the county that he's involved in dealing with issues of homeless veterans. And then we will close with my VFW Post 5262 commander, Commander George Moore. When I retired in 2007 after 24 years of military service, and then a couple years ago, my wife retired after 30 years of service as a civilian to the Department of the Army down at Fort Benning, Georgia. It was decision time for us. Where were we going to settle and spend the rest of our lives? Everywhere I've been since I retired in 2007, I'm a lifetime member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I'm a lifetime member of the American Legion as well as the Military Order of World Wars. So I knew that that was important to me. But after my wife retired, we made a decision, and what the single thing that was most important to us to come to a place that had a sense of community. And so it was not difficult, and it was a fairly easy decision to come to Cherokee County and Canton specifically because it's quite clear there's a sense of community. And we've been here just since the beginning of the year. And all my experiences have affirmed that. But for me, because my late father-in-law and my late father were both career enlisted Air Force, that's been a part of our lives. And we expect that to continue to be a part of our lives, giving back to our communities in that way. So the sense of community that we were looking for was, one, we realized that Cherokee County, like communities everywhere, but even more so in this community, and which what attracted us here, there's absolutely a sense of appreciation for veterans and former military. That is without a doubt. But one of the things that I've noticed that since my retirement, there's a difference in appreciation and full understanding of what the Veteran Services Organization can bring to the community. And I noticed that at my last city council meeting. I've noticed as I go around and I talk to folks in the community that the very first thing that ought to be on the mind, starting with our political leadership, starting with the city, whenever an issue is brought up that involves former military or veterans, ought to be, well, how about Canton VFW Post 5262? How about Canton American Legion Post 45? Maybe we should get a hold of them to see what they can do, because we're still in the service. And that's really the message I want to bring to you. The real folks, the folks that really get things done and do things for Cherokee County and been at it, and lifelong members of the community. I want to turn it over, starting with Jim Lindenmeyer, and then we will close up with my VFW Post Commander. Jim?
Mayor, Council, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk tonight. Originally from upstate New York, graduated West Point in 1980. Served 12 years in the Armored Cav with people like Marty Dempsey, people like that. My advisor for class advisor was Omar Bradley. So I got to know a lot of good people in the military at the time I grew up. I have a number of brothers and sisters that are in the service as well. But when I retired from corporate America a year ago, from companies like EDS and CSC, where I was a global corporate account manager, my wife and I moved from Alpharetta over here, and my father passed away, who was a veteran, and I said, let me look what I can do for them, started figuring out what my retirement project is, and it became homeless vets. Why? Because you got them here. We spent 8 months researching the issue, and we created on November 12th of last year the Homeless Veterans Program that's headquartered out of Post 45. I now am part of the Homeless Task Force for the Department of Community Affairs for the Department of the State of Georgia, as well as I'm on the American Legion Task Force. And I'm going to leave you a presentation I just did for the State of Georgia's Homeless Convention they had down in Savannah. And if you're reading the papers today, New York City just came out last week, said they got a homeless problem. You got LA wants to go out there and do a big, possibly an Olympic. They came out and said they got a homeless problem. Hawaii says they got a homeless problem. So you start looking at homeless problem isn't something new. It's still there. You just tend to ignore it. It's here in the county. We've had 3 vets that we have done in the last week that have been homeless. One who is right now, we are trying to get him into an apartment, is a retired Navy E6 who's only got he's paying alimony for half his money. He's trying to live on less than $800 a month. We're trying to get him into it, and what's happening is the housing authorities are saying, come back when you got 2 months rent, we'll talk to you. That's not something someone who spent 24 years of service for the Navy to be told that he can't afford a place to live, and he's been living in his car for the last 2 years in Bartow and Cobb County before he came to Cherokee County. We're seeing homeless veterans moving from downtown Atlanta out here because Atlanta's unsafe. They know that this is the 7th largest community, and if you dial 211 for United Way and talk about being a veteran from Cherokee County, you'll get routed to my phone number, and we'll take care of you. So we track everything going on. If you look at the state, and this is something that's not yet published, but it's in here, there's 76% of the homeless, there are unsheltered homeless in the state. 10% increase over last year for homeless veterans in the state of Georgia. And that number is off by I think, 2,000 veterans, because the point-in-time count that's being done is not correct. Cherokee counties like Fulton County, when I was up there in Alpharetta, was booming. You got people that want to come out here, want to get jobs. Right now, you got 70% of your people commute outside the county for jobs. You got to figure out how you're going to get them here. Housing's not available for the veterans coming in. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to reach out to we've got 2 kind of classes of veterans, the older veterans that are from Vietnam and older, and a lot of those are living on less than $1,000 a month in Social Security and need help, which in the last couple of months, we got a grant for $50,000 that we partnered with Habitat to go out and do winterization for seniors and veterans in the county. And I cover from Ball Ground down to 92. That money came to us not because we were trying to think of something to do, But if you remember last February in Dunlop, Tennessee, you had an 85-year-old World War II vet froze to death because he only had 2 electric blankets. When the power went out, he froze. He deserved better than that. No one checked on him. Nobody bothered to take the time to go out and find out what was wrong with him, and we want to get ahead of that for this year. We've also teamed with Home Depot and done over $5,000 worth of projects such as ramps for veterans. We've got a 90-year-old World War II vet up here in Canton. We just did the work on Van Diver Road. We've got a Desert Storm rep. We just put one in there that's up further north on 140. We've got more projects coming in. We start next week on a Vietnam veteran because he needs a wheelchair ramp as well. So we're not coming to you and saying, here's the things we need, because we came out to the cities when we started this program, and you looked at the Mayor's Challenge that came down from Michelle Obama. You said, we're behind it, but here's the 3 things. We have nobody to help you, we have no money for you, and don't put a shelter in our backyard. Guess what? We have no shelters in Cherokee County, 0. So where are these people supposed to go? We send them to Must Ministry down in Kennesaw. When I was at the state meeting a week ago, and this gentleman, the retired Navy guy, called me, I asked Tina Moore, who's the head of the Department of Community Affairs, said, give me a housing voucher. She says, we don't have any. We asked the VA for support, and you're going to hear from George Moore. A year ago, we approached the Canton Housing Authority, which is a HUD program, which is 8A, to see if they could help us with some housing, partner with us. We asked the VA to come out here and spend time with us 1 day a month. And Jennifer Turner Reed from the VA turned us down after we got her space in the county office building. The HUD program that was turned down because they don't do the casework that the VA is supposed to do. So we got money over here in Canton Housing of $500,000 they could spend because they've got the money. You got the VA who doesn't want to come out to Cherokee County because they're too busy handling what's going on down inside the city of Atlanta, and they're pulling back more and more services back into Atlanta, and you're getting less out here. And so we're getting points where we can't get it. We can't get VASH housing vouchers for our servicemen out here because we don't have a housing authority. In order to get a housing authority, you got to get VASH vouchers. City of Rome's sitting on 25 VASH vouchers we can't get access to because they're non-transferable. So what are the vets supposed to do? You know, they come to us and try the best we can to get what's going to go on. So what we're trying to do is change the view of the veterans, like my father. We don't want you to think of veterans as being a bunch of old guys sitting around drinking beer, smoking cigars, telling war stories at the VFW or at the American Legion. We're out there helping vets because we're not getting help from the civilian side. So we need to sit down and create a Veterans Council within a county, look at how we're going to address these issues because they're not going to go away. And for the VA to tell me to send a vet down here, down to McDonough, because they can house him down there, and I said, great, think about that. I send a vet down there today. What do I do with the guy tomorrow? Send him down again? I mean, there are homeless people that are sitting right here in your backyards you don't know about because nobody wants to tell you they're there. There's an alcoholic World War II vet sitting down in 92 who's living less than 100 yards from the road in 3 tarp shacks, tarps that he's got with 2 cats, and he's an alcoholic, and he won't come in. But he's been there for 3 years. And we won't come to you and tell you where they are because we see the city of Tampa that runs them out. We see the city of New York that runs the veterans out. So sooner or later, someone's going to have to help us fix the issue and address it. And we're hoping that the cities will now turn around and say, you know, let's start putting a shelter here. Let's look at how we're going to handle the vets. Because that's money that comes in. You know, we get VASH vouchers. That's money that the government's putting in. We get vets that are retired can get housing. That's money coming in. So that's going to help your tax base. That's going to help your stuff. And it's a perception thing. You know, people right now, Cherokee County is the 7th largest veteran community in the state. Number 7. It can easily go down to 0 with bad reputation because people won't want to move here if they don't feel that they're going to get supported. So, and right now our organization, we've got all the different military organizations in the same program with us on the veteran homeless program. So when I speak on homeless, I'm speaking for John Newport from the Marine Corps League, Raymond Rollins, Rusty down at 316, Buzz up here at Soleil, because we're all working together for the same thing, and that's what we're taking care of. We're taking the guys that, you know, we went to battle with, and we're taking care of them going forward. So, you know, you guys can turn around and say, let's look at how we want to do something. We're more than happy to listen, but we don't have time to wait. We're going to continue doing what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. My name is George Moore, and I'm the commander of VFW Post 5262 right here in Canton. And several years ago, the membership asked me to take the commander's job, and I said I would if they would double my salary every year. They did. Sure enough, I'm still at the same pay level. There are 108 VFW posts in the state of Georgia. But right now, seriously, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we do. We're located on Moose Loop Road, and we meet every second Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. We have about 60 members, and approximately 25 show up for the meeting. We have a short business meeting, and then a free meal is served thereafter. I'd like to tell you some of the activities that we engage in. Each year, we distribute Buddy Poppies around Memorial Day that are made by disabled veterans. You'll note that I said distribute. We don't sell anything. Each year, the Cherokee High School Junior ROTC cadets assist us, and we donate half of the proceeds that we take in for them to use in any manner that they so wish. This year, they used the money to help pay the expenses to take the cadets to the Citadel, and I understand they go up there every year. Another thing we do, each year we award an outstanding cadet from all the Cherokee high schools a certificate of our appreciation for their achievements. We make donations to the VFW National Home for the Children. We make donations to the Children's Miracle Network. We also donate money to the National Cemetery here in Canton, and we do that in the form of wreaths across America. From time to time, we make donations to the Must Ministry, and we make donations to veterans' families that are down on their luck. This usually involves cash money to pay their utilities. We have a service officer, and he assists veterans to file their VA claims. And this year, we sponsored the Veterans Appreciation Banquet over at the Canton Moose Family Center. We've been doing this for the last 8 or 10 years. We had approximately 150 people show up, and their guests were in attendance. We had an excellent guest speaker, and we gave away door prizes. The gentleman, I can't recall his name right now, it was a little odd name. He entered the military service in 1942 and was awarded a nice plaque for being in service at the longest date. This year we contributed medical supplies to the Bethesda Clinic in Holly Springs. This year, as they have done in the past, the Canton Moose Family Center will hold their annual Christmas toy run. And if you want to hear some noise, just come over there and listen to 1,000 plus motorcycles rev up at the same time. And lastly, we conduct an American flag retirement ceremony several times a year, showing our great respect for what it represents. I could go on, but I only wanted to make you aware of our organization and what we stand for. Each veteran here tonight is invited to our next meeting, which will take place on December the 10th at 7 p.m. Come check us out, see what we're all about, and enjoy a meal on us. I have business cards available, and I think they've been passed out through the room. Give you a little information about us. And at this time, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. We really appreciate that. Mr. Linden Mayor and Mr. Wright, we appreciate and thank you for the service that you have given this country in the past, and what you're giving to our community today. We thank you very much. Thank you. Sure.
I do appreciate y'all's presentation. It was quite enlightening. I did not serve in the service, so I still feel like I should have, but my eyes, which are, I just had them operated on 2 days ago, but that was my reason for kicking me out. But that wasn't what I was here to talk about or ask. Y'all do so much, and I wasn't aware of all the things that you did do, but you do so much for the children, which I think is quite commendable. But at the same time, there's so many organizations working for the children and so few that are probably trying to work to take care of our vets that are in need. And I guess I would like to hear why we might, one, why we do it that, y'all do it that way when the vets are the ones that need it the most, and we got so many given to the children. I don't want to take anything away from a child or them in need, because they have needs too. But there are just fewer organizations, I think, that help y'all. And y'all need help just as much as some of the others, if not more. So the second thing I'd like to ask, and I don't know who to address the question to, is that by addressing this mayor and council here, do you have some type of idea, or maybe that you've heard from some other or city or municipality, that where they have joined in to help the vets? I'm kind of at a loss as to what can we do, if we can do anything. Maybe you have some type of idea that has been done before that this organization might be able to address at some time.
Man after my own heart. Looking at this stuff, a lot of the program I do is only...
Thank you.
The homeless veteran program only deals with non-children. We deal with veterans, whether it's female or less, and families. Now, there's a program we have called SSVF, Supportive Services for Veterans with Families. That is a federal program that if we find a veteran who's got a small family, and I've got a family in Woodstock right now, who I got a 100% disabled veteran with PTSD and a 4-year-old daughter and a wife who we're trying to get, we're doing work with him right now. We make sure the family's secure first, to make sure that's going, but to us the focus is on the veteran. He needs a lot of services. We've announced 2 mental health programs for the county that are separate from the VA, because the VA doesn't come out here and we have no transportation to get people down to the Decatur VA. So we have a hidden location here where I have a female veteran herself who's a licensed therapist that spends her Saturdays and Sundays spending time with veterans with PTSD and depression. So we can get them back into the streets and back into the society where it needs to go. So the program I'm dealing with are strictly programs that are non-children related. Now, we are happen to do a breakfast this Sunday over the Cherokee Senior Center, where we're inviting disabled veterans, those that we've worked with in the last couple of years, homeless. I've got an 80-year-old Marine from Vietnam, or not from Vietnam, from Korea, who now has custody of 3 children, 2, 5, and 6, that came to us because he didn't have money for propane for his house. That's how we find these. So those people, we've actually got Kimberly Clark that's coming in and helping us adopt a vet to get that family food and other services. Like one of the families needs a bed for their 4-year-old daughter. So we're working with private, public companies trying to get funding, because we're all volunteers. Everything we do is through donation. We don't get money from somewhere. We have to go out and earn it, and we fundraise it, and we've got a fundraiser golf tournament tomorrow. So that's something we're doing countywide. So the veterans I work with are all, we have a tracking system when they come in. They need a DD-214. We send them to Rita. They need benefits adjustment. We got a guy come in to us who was an Afghanistan vet that was injured in a helicopter crash. I've got an Apache helicopter pilot who flew Apaches for the 82nd Airborne, who's got traumatic brain injury, who's been waiting 7 years to see the VA. And then we deal with a congressman on that. So there's a lot of things that we go to congressional on that we don't even come to you for because it's not within your realm. Where we need help from you guys on is housing. Well, is there some way we can do with some incentive since you got the water system? Can we look at somehow finding a place to get veterans in? You know, it hasn't been a lot of success in a lot of cities, but if you look at what's going on in Salt Lake City, you look at what's going on in a couple other cities out there, and I'll get the information to you.
But what did they specifically do?
They were big cities, went to the big government and said, we got a big problem, we're going to take it down to zero. State of Connecticut will tell you right now they have no homeless veterans because they ran them all off. They all went down to New York. So the problem is no one has worked with the veteran side. So you've got the focus community here that's run by the county. That meeting is the last Wednesday of every month at 8:30 in the morning. I'm at every one of those meetings, and every program that focus has, they have a civilian side and a military side, and I represent the military side. So we're not here to duplicate programs, we're here to leverage them. We leverage Habitat for Humanity on grants and stuff we're doing for contractors for the winterization program. But the work we do at Home Depot, there's a Team Depot program. Home Depot is allocated $87 million for veteran repair. And we're taking advantage of that. We're making sure we get that money into the neighborhood here to do work. We've also got other funds we're doing it with. We're HUD. I've got a 100% disabled veteran who's got Agent Orange who lives down here off of Univetter, who is, we're trying to get him through the VA for a HISA grant, which is a home improvement grant, because he can't move. And he can't he can't use his bathroom because he can't fit through the door. So he's bedridden. And he's been waiting 3 years to get the VA to see him. And he goes and sees him tomorrow.
I understand that we have all those individual situations, and
yeah,
each one truly needs attention, but I guess I'm trying to see if there's something that our city, Canton, could possibly, do you see there's something that the city of Canton could do to help y'all?
Yeah, well, we need to sit down with you guys and figure out where we can connect and how we can do this stuff. What agencies do you have? I sit with the SALT team, so we know that there's seniors we can help, but there's got to be a way we can find out on housing right now. That's the biggest thing. We're not going to solve the transportation problem. I don't know how we're going to do that one. That's a big problem. We do have VA services that we can get people down to Decatur on. Can't get them anywhere else. And just so you're aware, the VA is telling our veterans that right now, if you want service, go to Chattanooga. We're full in Georgia. So some of us has got to get back from the cities back to the governor and saying, wait, we've got a problem here. You know, we can't get people getting local services. We're outside the choice program, and I had to take a vet last night from Woodstock with PTSD having an issue up here to the Northside Hospital and get him in. And we had to deal with a crisis line with the VA. And we had the question is, if we get him in here, will he be transported down to Decatur or not? I mean, there's a lot of issues on the service side, and then you get into the city health program. It's all focused around WIC and restaurants. I mean, there's some places here that we've seen veterans. I wouldn't let my dog live in that they're living in these facilities.
But have you seen something specifically that we can do from the city that we can take some action on? Or I want to narrow down. The problem is huge.
Well, let's start with we got housing. George is on the housing council. You got Sherry over here at the Canton housing. Let's look at what we can do here. The jobs, I'll bring the Department of Labor in. We need the city to say, how can we help with the housing? Where's it going to come from? Who's your planning committee? You guys have got a planning committee that you're going to grow the new hospital coming in. Where are the apartments going to come from? Where are we going to have low-income housing? I got what is it, George, a family of 3 right now? Over here, it's a 5-year wait. I can't tell a veteran to come back in 5 years. He may not live there long. So we got to figure out where we can, what services you guys offer we can tap into. What services you don't have, how are you going to create it?
I don't know if we have any services. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is there something, Mr. Mayor? Can you got any insight on this? Is something that we can do that we are not doing? We're probably not doing anything.
I think it's understood that the city itself has got limited resources, but there is one thing that you can do in the very short run. This Tuesday, December 8th, our state representatives are going to meet with the Chamber of Commerce and with city leaders like yourself. I'm assuming that Canton City Council is going to be represented there to talk with our state representatives to set the agenda for the legislative session, which is set to begin.
Right.
What you can do is you can take the materials that Jim has, and if Jim, if he's not busy with his paying job during the day, he might even be equipped to be with a representative from Canton on Tuesday, and just put this on the list of the many things that you would like our state representatives to take up, because you're right, City Councilman, this is bigger than the city of Canton. It's bigger than Cherokee County, just like Jim pointed out. And
Well,
that's just something that occurred to me
that meeting
as Jim was
is open
talking.
to the public, so if y'all want to come, you're welcome to come. That's open to the public.
That'd be a great session.
We got a meeting with the state. We got to look at that one too. No, we'd love to, because the county's got to start looking at, and some of this is going to be Buzz and Jerry's issue they got to deal with, because they don't have the services. You look at the city of Atlanta, they've got a lot of organizations that duplicate stuff, and right now we need transportation.
Have you had such a meeting with the county?
With the county? Oh yeah, yeah.
So if the county did something and we pulled the cities together?
I think what we need to do is create a veterans task force with the cities and county and say, here's where we need help, where are we going to get it from? And that needs to include, I will bring in the deputy director of the VA over in South Carolina. She's already said she'll come over.
Well, that might be just a start, is to...
Yeah, because we got to start the conversation somewhere. We got HUD down here, Michael...
who have you contacted at the county?
At the county, we deal through with Jerry and Buzz.
Jerry Cooper?
Oh yeah, Jerry,
Okay.
yeah. And they're both veterans. One's a Navy submariner, and the other's they both happen to be members of 45.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll leave this for you guys to take a look at. But
Please do. Yeah. Thank you.
We need your help. We can't do it ourselves. I'm retired.
Okay. I've been handed some information that did not get included on our agenda, and I'd like to go ahead and deal with that at this time. And I understand Chief Floyd has some promotions in the fire department need to be taken care of. And I do apologize that's not on the agenda, Chief, that we would have taken care of this right after the police department or before it or whatever. But
I was on vacation last week and missed getting the information to Miss Susan. Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's a rare privilege that we get to come before y'all to introduce a couple of our new officers. We've our promotional policy or promotional procedures for the city of Canton we do is based on experience, education. We've got a list of training that they have to attend. Then we go through a written test. After the written test, they actually have to, if they're sergeant's position, they're doing driving and they're actually pumping the trucks. Officers, the lieutenants, they actually have to go through a scenario-based making decisions. And we just finished up the promotional policy last month. And we've had two individuals, if I can get Josh Thomas and Michael Williams to stand forward. They actually made it through the process, done extremely well. The Firefighter Thomas has been with the city of Canton since, I want to step over here, Susan, don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. Firefighter Thomas, I'll speak up, has been with the city of Canton since 2012. He's an EMT, firefighter too. He has recently made the promotion to sergeant, and it is my privilege to present him from the assistant chief and myself a certificate that actually reads, for your knowledge, experience, dedication, and preserving the life and property of citizens and visitors of the city of Canton, effective this 18th day of November 2015. Congratulations, Sergeant Thomas. Sid is an old timer, but Sid has been with us since 2000. He actually came, he worked for us, went to the county for a short stint, and actually came back to the city of Canton in 2000. Sid is close to a lot of departments, and I've known Sid for a long time. I've known him before he came to work here. He is actually making the promotion to lieutenant. He is our first-line officer on the call, whether it be an EMS call, fire call, whatever it is. He will represent one of our first-line officers. He's got a great responsibility ahead of him. His reads, Michael Williams, Lieutenant, for knowledge, experience, dedication, and preserving the life and property of the citizens and the visitors of the city of Canton, 18th day of November 2015. Congratulations, Lieutenant Williams. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief, and congratulations. Okay, item B, presentation of the citizen survey project. CFO Nathan?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. If it pleases the Council, I've asked the accounting manager, Ms. Melissa Forrester, to come up and make the presentation to you regarding this idea. Subsequent to her presentation, we'll both be available to answer any questions, what we can, or receive any comments you may have. Ms. Forrester.
Okay.
And I'm here with you today to discuss the idea of the Citizen Survey Project.
You got to get close to that one.
Being
Please.
that you are elected officials, are one of the primary participants of civic engagement, the other two participants being city staff and the residents, it's imperative that we seek your approval and guidance before we begin such a project. Now, surveys have three main goals: to provide a means for communication, second, to consult with respondents about what we do well and what we need to improve upon, and third, to encourage action. Surveys can be aimed at businesses or citizens, or both. They can also be designed to address customer issues or citizen issues, or both. Some examples of customers' concerns include water, sewer, stormwater, and garbage service, park rentals and recreational programs, and permitting and licensing services. A few examples of citizen concerns include public safety issues, land use planning, and budgeting issues. Looking at some other surveys, I've compiled a few examples of questions we might want to consider. The first question we would ask might be, choosing from a list of services, departments, or programs, select all that you have used within the last 2 years and rank your satisfaction with each. A second question might be, on a scale from 1 to 5, how would you rate the city's overall customer service? A third question could be, choosing from a list of services, which 3 services do you value the most? On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the physical appearance of an area where your home or business is located? Another question might ask, based on what you know or have heard, do you think the city's property taxes are higher, lower, or comparable to other local communities? One more question might include, choosing from a list of issues and ranking them on a scale from 1 to 5, how important was each issue in your decision to move your family or your business to the city of Canton? Finally, you might end the survey with asking for additional comments or an open-ended question. Remember, these are just a few examples, and many surveys are much longer. The design and distribution of the survey will determine its cost. There are the potential to accept grant proceeds for citizen engagement projects. Agencies such as the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia, the Georgia Municipal Association, and the Georgia City County Management Association have experience and have established outlines for conducting successful surveys. Local universities are often engaged in the planning, designing, questioning, and reporting process of surveys. Reinhardt University is very excited about the potential to work with us on this project. The following MBA and MPA program leaders have the talent and interest in assisting us. You might be familiar with Dr. Donald Wilson, Dr. Dana Hall, Dr. Kathy Hyatt, Dr. Karen Owen, and potentially some others. When I asked Reinhardt what timeline would work best for them, they suggested the fall of 2016. This would give them time to prepare a course or an internship program that would benefit both of our organizations and stakeholders. In conclusion, listening to and acting on survey responses would show that the citizen shares citizens' concerns to improve their neighborhoods. I hope you'll consider this project idea and how you might like to shape this process. If you're interested in learning more, I'll be glad to assemble individuals and more information for planning purposes. I'd suggest starting this initiative in January so that an actual survey can go out in August or September. Please let me know if you have any questions or suggestions. Thank you.
Any questions? You did an excellent job there, obviously. Thank you very much. I think it's a great idea. We need to know where we are many times in order to know how to carry out our duties and meet the needs of the citizens. Mr. Huffman?
Were you asking for an action to be taking place here, Nathan? Or is this something we're going to do or going to discuss, or what's the next?
We're right now just in the preliminary time of this. I mean, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. What's the survey going to entail? Ms. Forrester gave some examples of the survey. So right now it's just preliminary. We're just presenting the idea to council, and hopefully going forward we'll receive some ideas back from y'all and back from management, back from Mr. Peppers, and we'll try to reach out to Reinhardt and see how we can get together and work out a good citizen survey that's going to bring some good information to the city of Canton.
Okay. Mr. Rust?
Nathan, might it be appropriate for us to put it on the work session for the first work session in January? That makes sense or not?
Will you need more time to reach out to Reinhardt?
Is there any? What's the cost? Is it going to cost the city anything to do this? Or?
Well, as Ms. Forrester mentioned, the cost maybe have a lot associated with our mailing, and are we, the size of the survey? Are we going to have, the rates that we do? And I'm not sure if the college will require any type of compensation or not. But those are all questions to be worked out. If I might add, if council would like, we'll be more than happy to present updates, whether it be at a work session or whether council would want us put together a task force that we can meet with once a month or once every couple of months to kind of keep council apprised of what's going on. We'll certainly be more than happy to do that.
Well, I think if you want to get some results by fall, it's something we don't want to put on the back burner then. Just, that's my thought.
Yes, we'll definitely keep it on the forefront.
You put it on the work session, and if there's nothing to be presented, we just don't. But if you got something,
okay. Yeah, we can keep y'all abreast each month if y'all would like.
Yeah, I believe I understood you, Nathan, to say that essentially if the council members or others have questions or thoughts after this presentation here, if they could direct those to our city manager, then they'll get those to you, and then we can come back and get some answers. And
sure.
And there is nothing wrong. I think we're putting this on the a work session for January, and may or may not need it. But if we don't, take it off if we needed to. But I think it'd probably be good to have it on there.
Certainly.
If we really want to move along with this. Anyone else have questions or comments? Okay, thank you. The next item is discussion of investment into the Georgia Fund 1 investment pool. Mr. Ingram?
Yes, thank you once again. Georgia Fund 1 is an investment pool managed by the Georgia Office of the State Treasurer. It was created in 1981 by Georgia Code and combines investment resources from the state as well as local governments. Some of these local governments that are able to invest into this pool are counties, municipalities, public colleges and universities, boards of education, special districts, state agencies, and other authorized entities as conservative, efficient, and liquid investment alternative as a means of. The primary investment objectives of Georgia Fund 1 are safety of capital, liquidity, yield, and diversification, with the primary emphasis being on safety of capital and liquidity. The Office of the State Treasurer assumes the daily responsibility of managing the assets of the pool, while the State Depository Board provides oversight and prescribes policies and procedures. The board meets quarterly and is comprised of the governor, the Commissioner of Insurance, the State Accounting Office, the Commissioner of Transportation, the Commissioner of Banking and Finance, the State Revenue Commissioner, and the State Treasurer. The Office of the State Treasurer generally invests the pooled funds in U.S. Treasury obligations, securities issued or guaranteed by the U.S. government or any of its agencies or instrumentalities, repurchase agreements contracted with highly rated counterparties, negotiate investment deposits, and highly rated commercial paper. Because of the extremely strong credit quality of the portfolio's assets and eligible investments, Standard & Poor's rates the Georgia Fund 1 AAAF. This is the highest fund credit quality rating by Standard & Poor's for funds, for governmental funds. Although Georgia Fund 1 deposits are not guaranteed or insured by any bank, the FDIC, the Federal Reserve Board, or any state agency. The resolution that you have before you is required by Georgia Fund 1 to be approved and executed before any funds are deposited within the pooled account. The city's cash assets are currently invested in local demand deposits, and they earn approximately 3 to 5 basis points in interest and are fully insured and or collateralized. As you may see from Georgia Fund 1's most recent monthly yield sheet, on a per annum basis, an investor could expect a yield rate of 15 to 20 basis points. That's about 3 to 5 times higher than what we're currently earning. Approving this resolution will offer one more vehicle that the city may use to temporarily invest liquid assets. Thank you.
Any comments? Mr. Huffman?
Pardon? You want your funds? What's the exit plan?
Well, as I mentioned, one of the goals is liquidity. The Georgia Fund 1 will usually have your funds that you can move in and out within 24 hours.
No penalties?
No, sir, of course not.
Anyone else?
I would just mention that the whole goal of this conversation is that if we ever wanted to use Georgia Fund 1, we'd have to have this resolution approved. We're not asking for any funds to be put into it, but if it is something the city would like to consider for us to do with cash at any time, by having the resolution done, we could do it at that point.
Okay. Mr. Rust?
Nathan, I just had one question. I'm sure I'm reading this wrong, but the second bullet point on yield calculated on an annual 365-day basis of 3.3 basis points administration fee. The administration fee isn't 3.3 basis points.
For Georgia Fund 1?
Yeah.
No, sir.
That would destroy your 0.18.
It would.
That's net.
Yes, all these are
your
net.
yield is
any
net of
administrative fees.
this is just the way they're wording it.
Yes, sir.
Technical point. How do they keep it at $1? When dividends are paid, are they just paid in more shares, like units that you would have?
Their aim is for basically to attain basically the same value as your investment, not to lose value. So, my apologies. I don't know.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how you obviously earn money, a small amount, but so how does your rate always stay at $1? If you're putting new money in, you're always at $1. Where does that extra interest?
Every dollar you put in, its goal is to keep that value of the dollar.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, I will share my thoughts with Nathan with everyone here, just as I have previously. Is number one, there is a certain amount of risk involved, however small. And, I have always had a real difficult time with, public funds, putting them at any risk whatsoever. When you put them in CDs, you don't make as much money, but there are pledged securities that your funds are guaranteed. And in this situation, it's very, very unlikely probably, but there is risk involved. Okay, so just need to know that. Okay, next item. Discussion of a request by the audio intersection to create a loading zone on North Street. Mr. Peppers?
Mr. Mayor, Council, we did have a request that came in from Mr. Buckner of Audio Intersection to look at the possibility of creating a loading zone behind his business. on North Street. We passed that on to Mr. Patton in Community Development, and staff basically came back and said, that's to the council to decide. We can't authorize the conversion of parking spaces into a loading zone. Mr. Patton's here. He can speak a little bit to that process. I think you'll see in your packet there's some information as it relates to loading zones and the requirements that we have for those in the Unified Development Code. Mr. Buckner's here. He can speak as well if y'all would like to ask him any questions, or maybe you'd like to call him up and hear a little bit more from him about his situation. Yes, sir.
I have two questions and a comment. My first question is, this loading zone, based on the information that was just provided to us before the start of this meeting, looks like it would be in violation of our current zone. Is that what you're asking us to change their zoning code for this loading zone?
What we provided for you was something that we found in city ordinance that basically is a process, and I spoke with Mr. Dyer about this. And the process that's in the city ordinance is that a business would contact the Historic Downtown Canton Association, and that the Historic Downtown Canton Association would make a recommendation to the mayor and council. We don't have a Historic Downtown Canton Association that is currently existing, so according to Mr. Dyer, that's more of a process that would be bypassed anyways, because we're bringing the information to the council, who would make the final decision.
Does this present a little problem for us as we're in the process of doing some planning about everything in downtown, I guess, and I would just think we should be real careful that we don't put something in place that we have to change, and Mr. Buckner gets used to that loading zone that we have to take away or change. If we do make an exception, maybe we could make it temporarily until at least we get the results of the study and decide that that's the best thing to do. Does that make any sense?
It does, and that is one of the things that I think Mr. Patton put in his memo as it's related to the package, is that there probably should be some consideration to the fact that, you know, we're undergoing this master planning process that is heavily involved with transportation funds that impact transportation and accessibility and pedestrian accessibility, and whatever we determine here might ultimately change based on the recommendations that might come from our consultants and what might be enacted as part of that master plan.
My comment and question would be somewhat to Mr. Buckner personally, but when you bought this building and converted it and invested a lot of money in it, did you plan? I mean, it would seem like there was something missing in the plan if you didn't plan for a loading zone. You had to know at some point you were going to do exactly what you're doing now. Why wasn't that in the plan to begin with? Simple question.
I'd let Mr. Buckner answer that. I will tell you that in general, I mean, loading and unloading is always an issue in the downtown area. You know, unlike retail strip centers that are built with back alleys and ways to get things in, when you have a downtown and historic buildings and parking and all of that going on, there's always going to be some conflicts. And cities around the state handle loading and unloading differently. Some cities allow it and allow people to park in those parking spaces to unload and load, but they only allow it during certain hours of the day. You may have an area that's designated for loading or unloading up until, say, 10 a.m. in the morning. Or you may require that loading be done in the evenings, or that loading be done, you know, during specific hours or in certain lanes. Right now, for instance, on East Main Street, depending on where they're loading or unloading, they may pick or choose which lane they want to load or unload out of. Council could always come back and say you can load or unload, but you can do it in the left lane, not the right lane. I mean, those are some of the questions that other cities have dealt with. This is just one request that's come since I've been here, and we wanted to bring it to you because ultimately it's your decision as to what happens. And I think Mr. Buckner can really speak to, you know, probably what's going on specifically with his business.
It just seems like this is an issue that would have been pretty obvious, much more important almost than the color of the facade. And we went to great lengths to tell them what color the facade is. Maybe we should have been looking at what the backside of the building, what that was going to do to us. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Huffman?
Actually, so I had a couple of I've made a couple of photos for you guys to check out. To your point of it being planned for, I must say this is still about 10 times better than the spot I was at when I was 620 East Main Street over there beside the locksmith. So regardless of whether you guys say no to this whole idea, I'm still in much better shape, and I'm a happy individual. So I'm not coming saying that this is, do or die, or I'm going to move out of town or anything crazy. But something, if you'll look right there in that picture, there's a yellow curb, okay? The paint's gone, but it may be some sort of precedent there in some old piece of paper saying that this actually is a loading zone back from the old Kessler days. But the reason, back to the point of why now, why didn't you plan for this sort of thing, Southeastern Freight Lines is a very common daily runner around the city of Canton. They're ones that handle freight orders pretty much for downtown area. They changed drivers just recently, and I mean, we're a small town. You guys, probably most of you, have seen my girl Nicole. She's about 5'2", and the packages that come in are about 7 feet tall sometimes. And the last driver was awesome. He would get it over to the curb, and with a handshake and a smile. This new driver literally stopped in the road. Which, by the way, can you show the next picture here? This is whoops. Well.
That's a parking violation, by the way.
Yeah. This is from the future where everybody parks on the flying cars. So the box truck, if you try your best, what they do is they just literally stop in the middle of the road now. Hey, there we go. There's a flip button, right? I think you can click. I don't know.
Be able to rotate.
What it is, they just stop right there in the middle of North Street and drop the package off now. And they're like, see you later. And they literally are leaving our gear in the middle of the road. And Nicole has to stand out in front of it and just sort of let traffic go by on her cell phone with me saying, hey, can you please drop whatever you're doing and get over here to downtown Canton and help me get this piece of equipment in. And what I'm asking for, actually more so than killing parking spots, we could probably... even just one spot. What we really need is where the curb, maybe go back, since that one's kind of tough anyways, to the other picture.
Michael, will your...
That one, if we could just flatten that into an angle to where somebody could get up the curb with a pallet jack, that's what the Southeastern guy basically says tough luck on, that your street doesn't have a low spot that I can pull a pallet jack on, so have fun with it and buy. And there's it's not just me. You've got the pharmacy, the Snug, and the Mancini's restaurant that all have deliveries every single day with pallet jacks. This would benefit us all, I promise.
Michael, will your suggestion on a 40-foot loading zone correct this truck problem? Has he got enough space to get that truck in there in 40 feet? Is it a 40-foot truck or is it longer?
It's not so much that I need them to be able to park that truck there. It's that I need to be able to roll a pallet jack up. The box truck is still going to basically stop.
But then he's still going to be parking in the street to unload.
Correct. That's
he's not going to be over at the curb.
That's right. The problem is not that that he can't park his 40-foot trailer there. I'd be killing way too many parking spots to ask you for that. I'm simply asking for something wide enough to be able to get a pallet of something onto the sidewalk. And right now, I am unable to get a pallet onto the sidewalk.
Well, that's a whole different question then.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's a loading zone. I'm simply asking that, we give up one parking spot so that you can't park there, and it say loading zone. But then in addition, we just need to, like a little concrete right there.
Yeah.
To where we can get a pallet.
That shouldn't be a difficult thing to do, but I guess the question I have is that whole back area. We have had discussions in previous years about this, and Mid-City's always had a problem with their two spaces that I don't know if that's been grandfathered in, but
we respect it. It's
he seems to think it has been. I hadn't questioned or challenging him on that at all. But
Those two spots.
I think we're a small enough town to handle their little
but,
in and out.
yeah,
It's okay.
I really think he's going to block the street anyway, so the 2 parking spaces, just make that area where it's flat, so you can get the pallet in there. That's very reasonable. But I think at the same time, we need to address these trash cans. Are they going back over here to be emptied?
I'm very glad you asked that question. You guys have been kind enough to allow us, as our company, to use the city dumpster.
Right.
And we are forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
We produce an insane amount of cardboard and all sorts of stuff as a company. However, not to point fingers, but yes, there's a very nasty trash problem. We have asked, but not publicly in this sort of forum here. There are plenty of unused parking spaces, a lot, at the courthouse. I completely understand the conflict of interest, or whatever you want to call it, that's not your property. You guys as a council can't do anything other than ask the county, may we please have 1 or 2 parking spots to throw a dumpster for North Street trash.
We've tried that now.
Okay, well, I mean,
we got a big no.
Mrs. Hasty has been willing to give up a tiny amount of space, not a dumpster, but extra trash cans themselves over there behind Cherokee North apartment. She has personally given me permission for that. I'd be more than happy to sit down with you guys offline and talk about the trash on North Street.
Well, that's
an
just,
issue.
With the mural there, and that's still a major entrance into the city, it's always going to be a little bit of a problem to keep it clean.
Well, I'll tell you who it is.
Functional.
The people walking up and down that sidewalk are the people looking for the probation office, and they're people going to pay parking tickets that aren't typically from Canton. Like, they're some guy from Marietta that was speeding on 575. So this is their impression, like not being from Canton. And then all the people that are from Canton get to see the pretty side over on Main Street. It's a concern.
So in essence, to narrow it down, what you need is one space leveled so they can get a pallet jack.
Right. The most important thing is the concrete work that I'm requesting.
Because he's going to block the street anyhow.
That's right.
Ms. McGrew, did you still have anything? Or?
My questions were answered.
Okay. Mr. Grant?
Yes, I was going to say that the pallet access or ramp makes total sense. It's a totally different issue than I thought you were looking at, because that's something that would benefit all merchants. And the issue I had is, given a loading zone to one business and all the other businesses that would need one in town would take up all of our parking, but the pallet access makes sense. The other thing that you mentioned was that Southeast Freight was dropping boxes in the middle of the street and leaving them there.
Literally.
Well, that seems to be way against our ordinances, and I think that could be addressed through.
Surely there's a law somewhere.
That is not allowed, so I think we should address that.
Well,
or have someone address that, but
I mean,
it's that's an issue.
You guys addressing that as you will. Having said that, between now and when we have this ability to pull the pallet jacks up, then we're going to run into uncharted waters if I'm saying, well, then we're not going to leave it. So that might make problems worse for us. I mean, we've been able. There was only one time that it took more than, say, 10 minutes, and she had to stand out there for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we've got manpower somewhere. I mean, even if Nicole has to run over to the restaurant next door and, grab somebody. I mean, it was extremely rude, and it's been interesting to deal with that guy, but I don't want to make the problems worse either.
But I think it is the loading zone and unloading is a issue throughout downtown, as Mr. Purper said, and I think that is some of the things we will be looking at in the master plan, and things are subject to change, but the pallet access makes sense. And to me, it's something, we're looking at parking, we're always looking at parking, but, are certain areas, 30-minute zones and sort of, the parking spaces designated for the pharmacy, that may be better designated as handicap parking as well. So I think those issues are being looked at as well, too. But
I
the pallet
think
access makes
everybody
sense.
involved would probably be okay, by the way, with that being like a 15-minute park zone, because, if Southeastern Freight does come by, and that's a 15-minute zone, I mean, it's not going to take but a second for somebody to get out of the way so we can move the pallets. I mean, we could compromise on that being like, you know, it doesn't have to completely give up the parking.
Mr. Young?
So we're open.
Well, I just wanted to mention, I am very familiar with the issues he's having formerly occupied that building and had to unload semis in the street. And not even just that one freight company, I've run into issues before without an area for them to unload properly. A lot of drivers will just turn around and make you wait for your shipment. And sometimes that costs you a lot of money, so that's something to consider too. And as the last president of the Historic Downtown Canton Association, I would have definitely been in favor of approaching the city about getting something like this done. I think it's a great idea with the curbing, and I guess my question is going to be, I guess we need to find out what's going to be involved in doing that. Do we need to just pour cement up to the edge, or do we need to cut the curb? So I guess that's our next question.
Well, we can let Dave engineer it, or we could just send Public Works out there to do it. I mean, you know, I think in general it's going to be a temporary thing because, as we know, we're going to be dealing with the master plan. But we'll look at it and see what we can do, and if it's okay, come back at the next council meeting if there's any funds that we need to spend on it, and let you know.
Okay.
If y'all are okay with us moving forward with it, we can do that.
Jack?
I was wondering if we could ask Ken to just step up just for a moment and give us just a little bit of insight more on this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we all understand what the problem is, but what are the ramifications of doing it?
Well, as Mr. Peppers talked about, I, as well as the city engineer, public works director, will have to do a little bit of research into this idea of the ramp that would be used for the pallet jacks and that sort of thing. We've got to see what utilities would be involved with the sidewalk if we did an inside ramp. Another option is to build a ramp on the outside of the existing curbing within the parking space. And we'd have to do that, look at both options, if you will, find out from some of the trucking firms the length and size of their pallet jacks, how high, what angles would be operable or acceptable, that sort of thing, before we could come back and tell City Council that this is the best way to do it and this is what it's going to cost.
Could that be something that can be done in a couple of weeks?
I would think so, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Rust?
That was kind of my question also. I think the biggest thing we have to be concerned about is public safety. Although we're solving one problem, we don't want to create another where someone walks down the street and trips. So I'm sure you can take that into consideration so we don't have a depression in the sidewalk where someone walks down the street and falls on their face. We don't need that. So just tell us the best method and how much it costs, and we'll figure it out.
You think in terms of almost like an ADA
Yeah.
accessibility ramp at intersections, as far as what I would call an inside ramp, where you would take out part of the sidewalk and re-pour it. But we've got to see what, if any, utilities are under that section of sidewalk that might affect that, and whether it'd be cost effective to put it towards the outside within that parking lane.
Well, there's something down there because I see a manhole cover right near it. So there's something down there. So we got to be. But you're not going very deep. Actually, you could probably argue that it's an ADA thing too, because somebody hasn't mentioned that, because we could certainly use an access point. Michael, I'm sorry.
Exactly on the other side of the brick wall inside the building, there is a previous water hookup, for lack of a better term, that leaks into my building right now when it rains hard, and I get standing water inside my building from the old cut-off piping that I have no idea who or when or anything else about it. So if, in fact,
Anyone else? Okay, let's see what we can do about that situation. All right, let's see. The next item is a proposed amendment to the alcohol ordinance requiring special posting by the package sale outlets and consumption on premises businesses to discourage driving while intoxicated. Actually, what the idea behind this, at least in my mind, was that at the time of issuance renewal of a license, is that the city would provide a small sign or so that would be posted at any outlet that sells alcohol, either for off premises or restaurants that sell it for consumption on premises, so that it would be more or less just a reminder, and it would be posted near the exit to that establishment that would remind them, please do not drink and drive, and that possibility, at least on a temporary basis, to give this a trial run, have our police department could give these folks a ride home if they needed a ride home in the city of Canton. So that's up for discussion. You have something? Oh, yeah, turn it. Okay. Sorry. That's what this is about. So, anybody have any questions? I know. I think we could do this as a trial, perhaps, if it's council's desire for 6 months to see how it works. If there's problems that are too difficult to overcome as a result of that, we'll scrap it and think of something else, go a different direction. Mr. Russ?
Could you give me an example of a store that might need this posting?
I'm not going to name the store, but
the type of store then.
Any restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Any restaurant, when you go in, and come out, that sells alcohol. I mean, if they've got alcohol license.
I thought by package store they meant you actually buy the liquor and walk out.
Well, I think it ought to be there as well, because it's more of a reminder than anything,
Yeah, because I was just thinking, when people check your ID, it would be great if on the screen that comes up when you put a liquor in, a reminder to not drink and drive.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, it'd be simple.
That goes beyond the scope.
It would be
of this.
very, very simple to do that. But I agree. There's something. If we're going to post it, we should try it. And if it doesn't work, well.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure we'll have many questions, but one I happen to have is, and I like the idea of being able to ask our police department. I'm sure they have so much spare time, but what if the individual lived in Jasper?
You don't take them to Jasper. That would be mine. I mean, if they
well,
live in Canton,
I just wanted to bring that question up.
Or our police department, or if they found out they lived well outside the city, maybe they'd contact the county. The county would do it fine. If not,
yeah, I like the idea. At least we can call them a cab and
offer to do that.
Yeah.
There have been situations in the past where, say, an individual's at a restaurant, they have become intoxicated. They're not doing anything illegal. The restaurant decides they're a little bit past serving them another drink, and our police department has been called, and we have provided courtesy ride home to a city resident in the past. I mean, that is something that we would do. If we can keep somebody off the street and creating an accident and save lives and save somebody from creating a nuisance in a business, of course we're willing to do that. We just, in this situation, we would just need to formally say this is something we would like to offer citywide, and I would suggest that we have some type of period that we test it out. Let's keep some records on it, see how many people are using the service. We of course don't want to make it such a burden to the police department that they can't do other functions of their job. But you know as well as I do, you have 3 or 4 people out to dinner and a couple have drinks, and there's always a designated driver, hopefully, and it may be a service that we don't use that often. But if it does save a life, it's probably worth its weight.
What if we called Uber and let them drive home? And Uber's so inexpensive, it'd be less money for Uber to transport somebody in the city of Canton than it would be to call one of our police officers to come off their duty to transport somebody. You know, to go from one end of Canton to the other with Uber might only be $8 or $10.
Another option is under this policy, you could always get the contact information from the restaurants and make available to them a list of any taxi services that are licensed with the city.
I'm thinking about opening Uber. I'm going to become an Uber driver. There's not one in Canton, I don't think. I need to
not
work.
with those eyes. With all you have something, Mr. Young?
Yes, I like the idea of getting people that can't drive themselves home safely. My biggest concern with a program like that would be you would replace the taxi services, because if they can get a free ride home, they wouldn't try calling the taxi first. So I'm wondering about, you know, restricting it to certain situations, and you'd have to decide what the restrictions were, but that's my only concern about kind of opening a program like that to open to anybody, is you would, number one, hurt the taxi services, and number two, be overused for that to save somebody a little dollar.
I'm guessing the discreet Baptist drinker's probably not going to be excited about getting in the back seat of a police car in front of the restaurant for a ride home. Maybe they won't call, but I do understand your concerns.
Well, I mean, this is something, you know, we're discussing and we'll be thinking about hopefully between now and the next meeting, and, you know, maybe even further than that. But, you know, throughout the years, it seems like the motto of police throughout the country has been to serve and to protect. And in my opinion, this would do both at the same time. We're not out chasing bad guys at that time, you know, but you're providing a service. And I've been really impressed with our police department about the way they have been stressing service right now so much. With, I mean, you find somebody with a flat tire on the side of the road, they stop, offer to help, try to get them, and that's not macho stuff there. That's helping people what they need to be doing, you know. And they've been, you know, protecting our city and serving our citizens. And quite honestly, I think this is a service that, you know, if we can do it and try it temporarily, you know, it might be good, and it may just simply not work. I don't know. Mr. Rusk.
One of the great deterrents to preventing abuse is the fact that you got to remember that person got the ride home. The next morning they have to go get their car. So nobody really wants to do that. So I don't think there'd be a lot of abuse. People would really use it, I think, when they needed it. So I don't think we should worry about that one. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I'm sorry.
I just noticed Mr. Dyer's light was on. I didn't know if he had anything.
Now it's not.
He doesn't.
Okay. Actually, item F we had removed from the agenda there until the next work session, I think. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, hold on a minute.
I do have one item on
I'm
city
sorry.
manager's report.
I didn't give you a
apologize.
chance. Go ahead.
We are getting close to the end of the calendar year, and as you'll recall, a few months ago, we came to you and asked if it would be okay if we tried a temporary trial out at Etowah River Park to allow dogs on leashes in that area. We have not received any complaints. We haven't had any incidents out there. We have, in fact, received a lot of positive comments from the community as they found out that they're able to take their four-legged friends out there on a leash and enjoy family time. I would like to request that we look to extend that trial in a permanent basis at Etowah River Park, not expanding it to any other parks at this time, but just keeping it to Etowah River Park.
Okay.
And we can do that formally at the next meeting, but I did want to let you know about that trial. We told you we'd tell you, and it's all good news so far.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion.